if they're not responding, if they're not calling you to tell you they love this song, you got your answer. Don't
Silence
make them
is a bit of an answer.
Don't make them tell you no. Don't make them tell you you're not good enough so you can talk to them on whatever the new equivalent of behind the music is. You know, it's like, just take it as a no, move on.
Scott Safford, it is really nice to meet you, first and foremost.
Nice to meet you as well.
And thank you for being on What's Mine Is Yours. So I always tell everybody that, like, this show is really just, I want to be almost like the eyes and ears into Nashville for someone who's watching this and seeing what the music industry is like from like multiple different perspectives. So what would you say is your role in the music industry?
Well, it's not really what I say, it's what it is, I suppose. I am a lawyer for songwriters and artists for the most part. We do more than that, but that's the primary job. Okay,
so entertainment law. Do you find yourself, because I'm curious about this, and I'm kind of getting off topic, but this is really, I'm curious about this. Are you ever have to be in the courtroom, or is this just in an office?
If I'm in the courtroom, it's because I got a speeding ticket.
Okay, so you haven't had to do anything courtroom-wise with artists or
No,
songwriters?
I am strictly transactional work for artists, which includes, you know, record deals, publishing deals, clearances, appearance releases, that kind of thing. If they're in a courtroom, there's somebody else, a friend of mine helping them usually, not me.
Okay, because like
if I'm sitting next to you in a courtroom, we're on trial together.
Because I guess what comes to my mind is like what you hear sometimes in the music world is someone will sue a songwriter or an artist for something, for a song that maybe they think is stealing, theft. Like, would you be involved in something like that if it was your client?
I'm involved, but when it comes to, there's two types of attorneys. There are transactional lawyers, which is what I am.
Okay.
And then there are litigators who are the ones who deal with the courtroom stuff. And they're the ones filing lawsuits, defending lawsuits. So when it comes to infringement claims, I'm involved at the very beginning because I'm the one who gets the call. Mm-hmm. You know, either someone's claiming I infringed on a song or someone infringed on my song, and I get that initial phone call. And then if it's going to be escalated to where it's possible we might be in a courtroom, that's where we call someone who actually does that for a living.
Got it. Okay. So now getting back on track, origin story for you, kind of like the chicken or the egg, what came first? Were you interested in entertainment, which got you into law, or were you interested in law and then you kind of found your way into entertainment?
Yeah, I mean, being a lawyer is my price of entry into the music business.
Okay.
If I weren't a lawyer, I'd be maybe a publisher. I'm just fascinated with songs and songwriters, and you know, they need legal help. So I think I probably went to law school because I graduated with an English major and wasn't sure. I always had a fascination. Well, I say always. Most of my life I had a fascination with songwriters and words, and I think it had a lot to do with me being an English major. And I'm just, when somebody can put words together really well, I'm blown away, because I struggle with that. But I was just really interested in songwriters in the music business, but I also graduated with an English degree, and there's not a whole lot to do with that.
I get it. I minored in English.
You did.
I get it, yeah.
So law school was an easy next step, and then the further I got through law school, the more I got interested in entertainment law, and really it's really smaller than entertainment law. It's just I became interested in representing songwriters and artists, and so that's my ticket to get to hang out is having a law degree.
Not a bad idea. Well, pretty hard though. I mean, like I remember, so before I got into the music business, my parents wanted me to be a lawyer. I was going to go to law school, and I remember being like, no way, there's no shot that I'm going to go back to school for all of that. I'm just going to go straight to what I love. And it was music, but I realized that I correlated the two. I like to entertain, and that's why I liked law, is because I wanted to be a courtroom attorney though. I wanted to I did mock trial like growing up and did the whole thing where I competed, made a few people cry, I think, but I realized that I just wanted to entertain is what it really was.
Right.
But
I had an artist client once who was a duo, and Ryder Lee was a member of the duo, and they ended up not doing music, and he hit me one day and was like, "Hey, I've been going to law school. I haven't told you." And he's a litigator now. And I think there's correlation between being an artist and being a litigator. You need to be comfortable. Like, all these cameras and lights and stuff make me nervous, but some people are like, yeah, the camera's on. And if, so I think people who have the artist mentality, who embrace the spotlight, can be really good litigators, because you have to be on in the courtroom, and you have to be thinking about what you're saying and how you're going to say it and what the details are, rather than, oh my God, who's looking at me, and are there cameras, like I am right now.
You're doing great.
It is, so there's some correlation. You might have been good at it.
Yeah.
There's still a chance.
I definitely would have been good at it, but I was like, I really wanted to do criminal, so I don't know. That's kind of interesting. But then I thought, you have to be like a public defender at some point, right? And
you can be a public defender. You can be a prosecutor. There's people who cut their teeth on both sides.
I just don't want to defend someone and be so good you get them off.
Right.
And then they really did murder that person or something. That sounds awful.
That would be tough for me too.
So I don't know if do you just represent country music artists, or do you represent some pop?
We do, country's the new pop these days.
That's true.
So it is, I have a few pop clients. I'm primarily in the country music space in Nashville.
Find there's a difference between the deals that you're kind of working with when it comes to country music artists versus pop artists? Or would you just say it kind of all blends similarly?
To me, it depends on where the deal's coming from. If it's coming from, and I think the coastal labels, the New York and LA labels hate the moniker or the name coastal labels, because it's used in a derogatory sense here in Nashville. But they had to adjust to a shifting marketplace sooner or before Nashville did. And they had to start doing more artist-friendly deals before Nashville did. And it has to do with the decline of country radio and pop radio and hip hop radio and rock radio all died before country radio. Country radio is not dead, but the decline started sooner. So they had to look at deals differently. So when they entered our space, meaning the Nashville country space, they brought their deals with them to a degree. And a lot of those deals are a little more artist friendly. So it's changed the marketplace a little bit really a lot for the better of artists. It's kind of nice.
That's good. Okay, so say I'm an up-and-coming artist and I get a record deal waved in my face. What is the one thing I should not do?
Have rose-colored glasses. I think you need to ask hard questions. A lot of times the record deal offers are coming now because you have a song that's really streaming well, or something that's going on TikTok where there's a lot of interest in what you have going on. And I don't blame the labels. It's their job is to find what's working and to convince them that your label is better than everybody else's. And that doesn't give them time to really know who you are as an artist. So the dynamic you have to be concerned about as an artist is, does this label have a plan for me beyond this moment that I'm having? And, it happens so fast. I mean, it's if you're on the label side of that, it's kind of tough to have a plan, right? I mean, you've just known about this artist. Somebody, in an A&R analyst role told you about this person. And now you've got to figure out how to get up to speed as quickly as possible and how to genuinely show interest and a plan going forward. And to have a well thought out plan in that short amount of time is probably unrealistic. But if you're the artist, you need to know they have a plan. Because if not, you might lose the song that's creating your momentum. And then if you have a dip in the interest and activity of the fan base and the consumers, you might find yourself with a label that doesn't have a backup plan. And that's a pretty lonely place if that happens.
For sure. Okay, because I'm really curious about this, because it's been in the news a lot more recently now because it used to be. I want to get your legal opinion on it a bit. And strictly because you are an entertainment attorney. All the hoopla that went on with Taylor Swift and Scooter Braun and everything, I think there's a moral side to it, and then there's a legal side to it, and there's a business side to it. If you're the legal representative on either side, what are you saying?
I mean, the deal that artists sign and what they signed back then, it's not too different. I mean, you are in exchange for the label services of marketing you and getting your name out there and getting your music out there. In exchange for that, historically, artists have given up ownership in their masters. And at that point, it was a transaction. And when she entered into that agreement, who knows when the year was, I can't remember, but that's definitely the norm of what deals were, is that you signed up, the label owned your masters. And, you know, who they sold them to or what they did with them at that point was largely out of the artist's control. And a lot of people would argue it wasn't their business. And it was just kind of an interesting, there were personal dynamics involved between the buyer of the masters and Taylor, which made it an interesting dynamic that most situations where masters are sold, you know, it's that dynamic doesn't apply. Yeah. So it was just kind of a unique setup. First of all, she's the biggest artist on the planet, and masters being sold to someone that maybe she had some history with, which I think
that might have been more of the issue at play than just somebody. Because I was like, not compare it to, but in the sense of sometimes I see something as it could have just been a really good business decision. Like I like to think that if I had a cool 100 mil extra lying around, I want Taylor's masters. Like I want to buy them. Where do I buy them? You know, like, sorry, like Taylor, I would want to buy them too. So like, and I think like Michael Jackson bought the Beatles masters and like, they didn't just go to like a Beatles family member. It's kind of one of those things where sometimes if you want to step back of it from a morality standpoint, legally, like it was just a good business decision for Scooter, I guess.
So. And then, you look at morality with it. He didn't buy Taylor's masters. He bought Big Machine's masters, which included Taylor's masters. Sure. And it just happened that, Taylor's the biggest artist on the planet, but I have clients at Big Machine whose masters were sold, and they look at it, it's like, it's kind of what I signed up for. And now my masters are owned by somebody else, and my day today looks a lot like my day yesterday. I'm getting a royalty statement. Right. It's no big deal. Yeah. It kind of is what it is. That's the business. And then you've got Taylor taking a different position, but she's a different artist. Yeah. And she's, the biggest artist of a generation.
Yeah, that's for sure. So like talking about that, and so it's 2025, you're an entertainment lawyer. Do you think it's better to own your masters or your publishing?
Both.
If you could pick one or the other.
Well, I put a lot of value on publishers, and especially in Nashville, the way publishers work, they provide a lot of services. If things, if you have the right relationship and you're with the right publisher, they're working really hard to make sure you have the best songs possible. And I look at it, the difference between success and failure for most artists is typically songs. For sure. And you're trying to get started. If you think about artists that you know of now, you can go back and point to a song that started it all. So I look at it, if you're going to try to get in really good shape and compete in a bodybuilding contest, it might be a good idea to get a personal trainer. Yeah. If you want to write great songs, it might be helpful to get a great publisher who's there with you in the trenches working to make sure you have the best songs. So, to give up ownership in publishing or 50% ownership, depending on what it looks like, to have the right publishing relationship, I think that makes a lot of sense for most artists. Now, if you're already a successful artist, giving up ownership in your publishing may not make sense. If you figured out how to write great songs on your own, which is amazing because most people don't do that. True. But if you have, giving up ownership in your publishing could be a mistake, because a lot of times it's just at that level, if you've had success with masters, it's a financial transaction to give up half your publishing. And if you don't need the money, it could be a mistake to give up your publishing. When it comes to masters, it's tough to say. It depends on how equipped you are to do it yourself. If you are able to have millions of streams on your own without the assistance of a label, probably doesn't make sense to give up ownership in your masters. If you need help, if you're not naturally inclined to market yourself, or you don't have a team that can help market you and you need marketing help, might make sense to give up ownership of your masters so that you have that help. Yeah. Just depends.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
because people who are listening are going to be people who are fans of the music industry as a whole and not necessarily who are in it and understand it, walk me through a standard record deal. How does it work?
We don't have time for that. Is there a part two? Is there a part two to this?
Well, I mean, if you can give me the pink monkey version.
I mean, I think the first issue would be the term. How long does it last?
Okay.
When I first started, you might have one album and 6 options. So you might have 7, 8, and 2 greatest hits records in there. So by the time you're finished, you might be there for 8 records and 8 albums. And now that's number has significantly diminished. So it might be 3 or 4 albums. I'd say 4 might be the norm, maybe 5 now total. And then you've got to decide whether we can even talk about it in terms of albums, because there's some artists these days who the notion of an album is they don't really care to make an album. And then you have some artists that are like, no, I've always dreamed about my first album, so I really want to talk about albums. So record deals are really struggling, and business affairs people are really struggling to craft deals that cover both circumstances. And, an artist may think on the front end, well, I'm just going to do singles. I don't really care about albums. And then it changes, or vice versa. So, in the middle of deals, I don't have a lot of sympathy for those scoundrels that draft those agreements. I'm just kidding. Most of them are friends of mine. But it's a tough job to try to figure out how to craft a deal when the direction of the music business is changing so quickly. But you want to talk about term. How long are you committed?
Okay.
There's this notion that, 5 albums is good, right? And it's like, well, no, the fewer the better. You want to be a free agent as soon as possible. The idea, it's like sports. You want to be a free agent when you're having a really good year. And so the sooner you're done, the sooner you're a free agent, it can capitalize on your leverage and improve your deal.
I actually never thought of that.
No, a lot of people don't. And it's my lot in life to think about that. It's not very many people's. So you want to do a shorter term if you can, so that you can be done quicker. If things go well and you only have a 1-album deal, they're going to want to do albums 2 and 3, right?
That's true.
If things go well and you have a 7-album deal, you're a long way away from being able to renegotiate and get your deal in a place where you really like it. The second big point would be the rights, and we touched on that a little bit. Are you giving away ownership? Or are you not giving away ownership? Are you giving away half ownership? That used to be a foregone conclusion back to Taylor when she signed a deal in Nashville with a country music label. Very, very few people got licensing deals. And if you didn't have a lot going on when you signed, you definitely didn't have a licensing deal. So the label was going to own your masters. And, I'd like to know, I should have looked at this before I came here, but there's a lot more licensing deals now with major labels than there was last year and the year before. Definitely a lot more than there was 7 or 8, 10 years ago. So that's a good thing for artists, because when you own your own masters, people think about it primarily in terms of control, where I can, make decisions. And that's not necessarily the case. The nice thing about it is when the licensing term's up, you have an asset that you own that can be, like, go back to Taylor's masters. They were sold for a lot of money. Had she owned them herself, she could have sold them for a lot of money, or she could have kept them. My guess is she would have kept them. But so rights and ownership is another big deal. Royalties would be the next. What percentage of the income are you going to get from the masters? And then probably the next most important point would be whether or not you're going to have what we call 360 obligations, which means the obligation to pay to the label a percentage of your income from your overall entertainment exploits.
Okay. Yeah, because you hear that term a lot, and it's sometimes like a bad word when you hear like the 360 thing. But isn't that what the majority of people probably sign? Is it?
Well, it is a bad word. No, listen, 360 came about at a time where the labels were expected to still be the primary marketer and primary investor in marketing for artists, yet recorded music didn't have a lot of value. And so it was almost a necessity that 360 come about. Well, now we're in a time where masters have value again. So the question we're trying to solve or answer is should 360 participation, meaning the artist obligation to pay a percentage of their income back to the label in exchange for the marketing services, presumably having increased those income streams, should they have to pay them back in a time period where masters now have value again? And as primarily an artist representative, I would say no, they should never, and it should have never existed in the first place. And there's good arguments to the contrary if I'm being objective, but it's better for the artist if you're not stroking a check back to your label. I've had some conversations about that, and no artist is happy about writing a check back to the record label.
I can't imagine you would, right? Like,
no.
here's some money.
Yeah, here's some money. I had an artist client, I can't mention his name, but he was famous for like, I've paid them more than they've paid me, you know? And obviously I didn't verify that. I'll take him at his word on it, but that's a really frustrating spot.
Yeah.
And it's tough, you know, in a normal, and this is painting with a very broad brush, but business managers, the ones in charge of back-end accounting for artists, will tell you that a normal profit margin for an artist is about 20%. And when you have to pay more in 360, it cuts directly into that. So it's tough. You know, it's tough to get to the point. What happens is artists, you know, they start having this success, and they look and they're playing to 5,000 people, and they all know the words, and they go to the next town and they do the same thing. And then they get home and they're like, where's my money? Like, I'm in limousines, I'm in the back of black SUVs, I'm doing all this stuff, I'm on a bus, people are cheering for me. And I'm looking at my bank account and there's no money and I'm broke. How is this possible?
Yeah.
And then they sit down with their business manager and like, okay, here's where all your money went. And on that line item is a check that went to the record label. And they're like, ooh, why did they get my money again? And, you know, they forget about the time that they signed the deal and now they wish they hadn't. And, you know, it's just interesting.
Speaking about that, just for fun, true or false? Label deals are just a shiny trap.
I don't think so. I mean, look, labels are investing in marketing at a higher level than always have. Not always have, but since the beginning, they're not there to help you record a record. They're there to help you market a record. For sure. So they're record labels, and people want to deal with them because they've historically been the best marketers of music. And if you are in business with a label who does a really good job at that, you know, it can be a good deal. It can be a smart move for an artist. The frustrations come when you do the deal and you don't feel like they're doing a good job at that, at marketing. And, you know, the hard part is on the front end of a deal, you don't know how well they're going to do.
For sure.
And that's where I encourage my clients to ask a lot of hard questions. When you have a moment and they're all calling, they're going to tell you what you want to hear because it's their job to make sure you sign up with them rather than somebody else who's calling. And it's my job as part of the artist team to help get down to the basics of what they're actually going to do for you. And you know, what they want to tell you is, oh, we're going to blow you up. We're going to put all our resources behind you, and we're going to, you know, you're going to have the leverage of our whole company behind you, and we're going to take it to the next level. And, you know, if I'm not in the room or asking questions, and I'm rarely in the room, by the way, because I'm in charge of legal, a manager would be there. If you don't have a manager, it's the artist on the phone hearing all of this stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's really great. They're going to blow you up. They're going to put all their might behind you. I said, what does that mean specifically? Do they give you any specifics? And the answer is always no, you know? And it's like, all right, well, maybe we should ask some harder questions. Maybe we should say, when you say this, like, what does that actually mean? Blow me up. How are we going to go about that?
Sure.
And a question I always like to encourage them to ask is like, if I sign up, what are we doing next Monday? What's next Monday like? What can I expect from you? And what do you expect from me? I want to know that this is going to be a good relationship. I want to do my part, but I also want to know what I can expect from you so I don't come into this relationship with unrealistic expectations.
Totally.
And the truth is, in most instances, the labels don't exactly know because they're new to all of this, right? But they can they should have their marketing teams getting up to speed really quickly, and they can give some details about what they do, what they've done with the other artists that have been successful, some real like granular details about what your expectations can be. Because when I have an unhappy artist, it's typically because they thought one thing was going to happen when it was another. And sometimes it's unrealistic expectations.
For sure.
I mean, that's just the truth.
Yeah. But what is like an oh no moment for you? Because while we're all human, we probably all make mistakes where you were like, dang it, I should have probably pushed for that harder. Or that should have been in the contract and you didn't.
Always get it right.
Perfection. We love it.
That is not true. Nothing's coming to mind right now. This has not been like an oh no moment, but it is something that we have to deal with. Is there's a cadence of releases for artists that is more regular than it has been historically. Historically, it's been let's gear up, let's record an album, let's market the heck out of it, let's put it out, let's tour and tell everybody about it. And then at some point, 6 or 8 months down the line, we'll start writing songs for the next album, thinking about how we're going to record it, thinking about the first release. And that's still the case for some artists, but for newer artists, that's not the case.
No.
It's, hey, our fans are expecting something every 30 days, every 60 days, every 90 days, whatever it looks like. And so you have these contracts that were built on the old model. And then you've got somebody that's done with the big project and they're wanting to record their next record. And from the way contracts work, it's too soon. You need to get to the next period. They need to exercise an option, the label does, and then you start recording new material. So it's not an oh no, because we know it's an issue, but the labels just haven't figured out how they're going to deal with it in the contracts. And we've tried to force them to deal with it, but you're moving big mountains at that point.
Sure.
Because when you try to change a policy at a global company, whether it's entertainment or technology, you're moving big mountains. And when you have an artist that's getting their first record deal, you don't always have the leverage to say, hey, how about you change the policy for a country music artist out of Nashville for your entire company?
It's like trying to change an amendment in the Constitution. Like it's been around, so.
It's not quite that bad, but that's a good analogy.
So speaking on that in a sense, what is like a clause in a contract that you always push for a client? And sometimes even when an artist doesn't even realize that that's what they need, but you know from experience that they're going to need it.
Probably what's called a release commitment. And it's in a lot of ways a misnomer because the clause requires a record label to either release music that you've recorded or drop you. And
totally.
If you are in a place where I'm ever sending that notice to say, hey, you haven't released new music, you have 60 days to release new music or 90 days to release new music, or you have to drop my client. If you ever do that, you're doing it so that your client will be dropped. And be able to move on to the next level. If you have to send that notice, things have gotten so bad that you've made a record. They obviously don't like it, or they would have released it. And what you don't want to have happen is a label to release music that they're not passionate about or they're not going to push. So at that point, you just kind of want to be done with the relationship. Yeah. If you don't have a release commitment, the label is contractually allowed just to sit there, not release music, and your contract period could go on for a really long time, sometimes indefinitely.
Well, yeah, I mean, not that I actually know all the details of it, but Katy Perry made her movie years ago where she talked about that, where she was signed and like it felt like she was, I mean, I guess the term is like being shelved, right? Where you're just like stuck there. And I feel like sometimes it feels like a very strategic play. Like if a label, and I don't even know if this actually happens, but this is in my brain what sometimes I think happens, is if a label has a very successful artist and they see someone who's maybe just like them, and then maybe they sign them like trick and then shelve them so that they're not competition for their artist?
That's interesting. I'm not aware of a circumstance where that's happened. Most labels, if you are shelved, if you're shelved for a moment and you don't have a plan going forward, if you talk to them, are like, hey, obviously we've lost a little bit of excitement, enthusiasm for my career. How about I move on? Mm-hmm. Very few labels. It's because it's pressure. If you're running a label and you're a good moral human being,
sure,
knowing that there's someone on your roster that wants to move on and do something different, and you're like, well, contractually we can just sit here for another year and see what happens. Most people running record labels are too decent to allow that to happen.
That's very good to hear.
There's some outliers, no doubt, but most you can say, hey, this isn't working, is it? Can we just call it and let us move on? And I've had some good success with that, and not because of anything I'm doing or any influence that I have. It's just bringing it to their attention, the label head's attention, and them looking at it like, yeah, I don't want this person, on my roster, unhappy, wondering if we're ever going to help them. That's just not right.
Uh-huh.
And so getting shelved is not as big of a problem as it once was, I don't think. But I think a component of that is it's really tough for someone who's not a priority to say, this is so bad that I worked my whole life for a record deal. Mm-hmm. I finally got my record deal. And now I'm going to walk into the office of the person who gave me the record deal and tell them I'd rather have no deal than a deal with you. Oof. That's a tough thing.
Totally.
It's a tough thing to just, because the hope is like, well, maybe if I record something awesome or write something really great, the enthusiasm will return. And if I tell them I want out, then I'm looking around and I'm not signed to Columbia Records anymore. Yeah. I'm just me out here on my own. And sometimes that's a tough ask to make, is like, I want to be dropped from this dream of mine. It's a challenge.
For sure. When that's all you've worked for and that's your dream, and especially if it was like a major, that would be hard. You'd almost be like, maybe I would just prefer to just say I'm on it. Yeah. Like, because I'm sure that comes with some, there's an ego there too, right? Yeah. Of being like, but I'm on Sony. Right. I get to say I'm a Sony artist.
Right.
And if you have to walk into Sony and say, can you drop me? Because I actually hate it so much that I don't
choose nothing over you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then nothing's a lonely place.
Oof, yeah.
Now, if you have a backup plan, you have a great manager that's, hey, we got a plan that we're going to release this music independently, and you've got all this music that's inside of you that needs to come out. And that's, with all great artists, that's the way it is. Mm-hmm. And not even great artists that are making music, it is soul stealing to not be able to release music that you've made. Mm-hmm. And if you're in a relationship with a label where you cannot release music because it's not your time and you have unreleased music, that's a tough thing for an artist to endure on a personal level.
For sure.
And so a lot of times it is best to just get off and start releasing music on your own, and with maybe a smaller partner, so that you can just get it out and let people hear it.
Yep.
And the good news is that there are ways to do that and do it effectively that don't involve being on a major label. But it's certainly really tough to make the call that, okay, this major label thing did not work out for me, and I'm going to do it on my own. Mm-hmm. It's tough.
Yeah.
Brave choice.
I've never even seen that yet for me, so I don't know. That I can imagine it's very tough, because I've sat and talked to a few people where they've been in that position, and I'm like, I don't know how I would feel in that. But have you ever had to talk an artist out of a major deal?
I don't view it as my responsibility to talk them out of a major deal.
Okay.
I say I'm in the business of good decisions. Mm-hmm. And what I try to do is listen to how my clients are making a decision. And there's a spiritual component of that to me too. Sure. It's like, I don't want to get in the way of God's direction for someone else. And so I'm real hesitant to ever step in and say, you don't need this deal. But I want to make sure that they're making a well thought out, well reasoned decision that is based on, what God's plan is for their life or what is the best next step for their career, not pie in the sky, unrealistic expectations. Oh, my whole life I've wanted to be signed to Warner Brothers Records, and now they're offering me. Okay, well, let's talk about that. That's great, and it might be the right choice, but let's talk about where you want to be and how they fit into that plan. How are they going to help you achieve your goals? And I'll make artists articulate that.
Okay.
Because I think it's helpful for them to articulate it for themselves. And as they do it, I'm paying attention to things like, okay, is there ego involved? Is there fear involved? Is there unrealistic expectations involved? And I want to make them think critically about those things so that they don't make an error in their decision process. If that process leads to, I think I want to be signed to Warner Brothers Records, I'm all for it. If I look at it and they're making a decision and I'm like, they're doing this based on factors that aren't real, that's where I'll step in and say, are you sure you're thinking about this properly? Because you've told me you value A, B, and C, and over here's D, E, and F, and those two things don't align. So help me understand why you're over here in D, E, and F rather than A, B, and C.
Yeah.
And, sometimes there's a reasonable explanation, and then sometimes they're like, yeah, you're right. I was off base. And so that's me. I do not interfere with decision-making process. It is not what Scott thinks you should do. It's what you think you should do with Scott's advice.
Absolutely.
And counsel.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you go based upon that also with like brand collaborations? I'm sure those run across your...
Once there's significant brand collaborations, a manager's involved.
Okay.
And my firm is papering the back end of the deal most of the time, or we're helping with the front end deal points. But whether or not that brand deal makes sense for them is typically a decision made between them and the manager at that point.
Okay. Now, I think we mentioned it briefly at the beginning. We talked about like someone who makes it relatively fast. And I think I said viral or something. And so with TikTok, if you have a client that goes viral on TikTok overnight, what is like your top, say, 3 like legal checklists that you would want them to like consider?
That's a tough one. The biggest one is discerning people who love you for you, or they love you for the song that's going viral on TikTok, or the recording that's going viral on TikTok. Yeah. Because, a lot of these labels are in the business of building catalog and growing market share. So when they see something that is streaming heavily, they want it. It's their job to go get it. That's what they do. And it's our job as the artist team to make sure that you're getting the proper value, or that they have an interest beyond that master. So we look at that, and then we look at interestingly enough, I'm dealing with this situation right now, and I've got a really good manager and a really smart artist, and just you're looking at the possible suitors and who brings the value to the table that's worth what they're asking you to give to them. Mm-hmm. And that's a really big challenge, because it's all happening really fast. Really fast. And you've got a speed date. And you're trying to determine whose plan will be best for you for the next 15 years, when their plan right now is to, how do we get this master? And I'm not, that's just the nature of the game.
For sure.
And I'm not saying that they don't have a plan or they're not working feverishly on a plan, but it all is happening really quickly. Mm-hmm. And you need to be sure that you're with your right partner in a very short amount of time. And while you're talking to a lot of different people who are trying to contact you.
It's a lot of pressure.
It's really hard, and it's really stressful. And it's kind of an interesting thing. In the midst of these things, I often remind my clients, like, hold on, let's take a deep breath and let's be grateful real quick.
Yeah, that's nice.
Let's be grateful, because we came to town for this moment. And we're having this, and maybe not a viral moment, but we came to town or we started music because we wanted people to be interested in helping us. Now we got a lot of people helping us. So let's start with a praise report.
Yeah.
It's awesome that people are interested in helping you. Now, the business of paring down who the right partner is still stressful, But it's good stress. It's the stress you hope for.
Well, and I can imagine that sometimes it's easy as an artist, like without good people like say yourself or good management or a team behind you, to want to grab sometimes at low-hanging fruit. I mean, when something's just dangling itself right in front of you, and that, like we said, it's all we've worked for, it's all we've wanted, it's hard not to just go, yep, grab it.
Yeah. There's some really smart artists who have made bad decisions on that notion, because what you're doing is such a long shot. And
no guarantees.
You've overcome doubts, you've overcome your own, doubts of other people, doubts of yourself. And, a lot of artists, they came and down in their core, I don't know, they believed anybody would come help them. They just wanted to try. And then there's somebody that says, I'll help you.
Yeah.
And you want to believe that they're the right person to help you at that point. Really want to believe. So it's my job to make them articulate how this person on the other side of this contract is going to help you achieve your career goals. A lot of times an artist will come in with a piece of paper and say, I got this deal. And it really frustrates them when I turn it over and set it on the table, because I don't care what the deal says. The deal means nothing unless you can articulate to me how the person on the other side of the deal or the company on the other side of the deal can help you achieve your career goals. What's in there doesn't matter. But what they are is like, hey, this validates me. Someone believes in me. And what you hope is that someone is very capable of helping. But the frustrating part is when I have to break the news. It's like,
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if these people have what you think they have.
Yeah.
And look, I don't necessarily rule out any person or any company because of a lack of track record. But when they don't have a track record and they want to be in business with you, now we got to really dig down into the details of what about this entity or this person makes you think that they're going to be successful with you when they haven't been successful with anybody else.
Great point.
And but here's the deal. For every person that's now successful, they were once unsuccessful. So for that reason, I don't rule out anyone. The only people I rule out are the people who I know are ill-intended. And they're bad people and try to take advantage of artists. And there's not many of those. When you get involved with one, it's really, really, really bad news. If you sign documents and you're tied to them and you've got talent and you've got opportunities, yet you're tied to somebody who was a bad actor, and you're wrapped up in this deal and you have these good people who are ready to help, but they can't because you're stuck here.
You're stuck.
That's a problem. Yeah. But for everybody who's turned into the best manager in the world or the best label in the world or the best lawyer in the world, they were once someone who had no experience. So I never encourage people to rule out anyone who wants to help because they've never done it before. But if they've never done it before, there's an extra layer of scrutiny.
Yeah.
What about their personality? What about their integrity? What about who they are and their capacity makes you think you're going to be the first person they've been successful with?
Absolutely. So like in a industry where a lot of negativity is shown on it sometimes, what is an experience that you've had where you feel like it's restored faith sometimes in what can be considered almost a faithless industry?
Oh, it really bothers me when people say it's a faithless industry, especially in Nashville. Watch a tragedy happen and somebody puts up a GoFundMe. Look how quickly it gets covered. Look at the names of people who may or may not even know the person. The Nashville music industry rallies around their own better than any group of people that I know. And it really, you want to get, it touches a nerve with me. Like, when they say it's heartless, it can feel heartless when you're on the outside and you're like, I just want an opportunity and nobody will help. I get that. I totally get that. But you talk about a bunch of good people who will rally around folks in the industry who need help. A tornado comes through.
Yep.
And you have people running companies that are in jeans and a t-shirt with a chainsaw out there helping. Money gets donated. A bad medical diagnosis. We really rally around our own. And there's going to be stories and there's things that have happened that aren't our finest moment. But I'll take the Nashville music industry over any industry I know when it comes to caring for our own.
Because what's interesting is, and why I chose to kind of change this show up a little bit and not just talk to songwriters, because that's what I used to do, is that I was starting to see a very similar pattern in how people spoke about very like the same situation over and over again, because I realized I was talking to someone sitting in the same career seat. They were a songwriter. So why I want to talk to more people is like getting their different perspectives of Nashville, the music industry, because I'll sit down with some people who have a very negative outlook on it. And then you sit next to you, and it's really refreshing and really nice because you have a lot of good things to say. So I just think depending on what hat you wear in town, you get to see it through a different set of lenses. And some people say are scorned or bitter, and then they might see it through a different set of lenses. Then you get to see it, and it seems like you have a very good outlook on it versus some other people.
Yeah, I do. And what's funny is I'm not naturally like, oh, this is all roses. I'm very critical in how I view things and how it's my job, right? I mean, I need to, the artist sees all the good things and I have to point out the things that might not be good. Mm-hmm. So I'm not naturally inclined to say this is a great industry and everybody helps each other. But I believe that. But I also know that it's really tough, especially if you're on the creative side and you're trying to break through and you're like, I asked for this meeting and they didn't even call me back, or I met with this person and then I sent them some music and they didn't have a lot to say about it. And what I'll say about that is people are really busy, really busy. And when you're trying to get to the things you need to get to in your day, telling someone no or you didn't love their music, that's something that's easily put to the end of the day and procrastinated.
Yeah.
Because good people, you don't want to tell somebody, thanks for coming by, but I'm just not really interested in helping you. It's just, and I'll have my clients like, I've followed up 3 times and they don't return my messages or my text or haven't even responded to the songs I sent them. I'm like, look, and they're like, will you follow up? I tell them, there's not been one time in my career that I've followed up into a deal. Imagine this, hey, I was just calling to check on the music that so-and-so sent you and, to see if you were interested, not interested. And somebody said, oh, you know what? I heard that music and I really wanted to sign that writer and I totally forgot.
Yeah.
It's just they call it the Nashville no. In a lot of ways, it's disrespectful to not even send a rejection email. Mm-hmm. But what I encourage my clients is like, look, if they're not responding, if they're not calling you to tell you they love the song, you got your answer.
Silence is a bit of an answer.
Don't make them tell you no. Don't make them tell you you're not good enough so you can talk to them on whatever the new equivalent of behind the music is. It's like, just take it as a no, move on. They've got a lot of things pulling at their time, and making you feel bad about yourself is something that's not a priority.
Hey, that's the glass half full right there. They're trying to be nice.
They are. And in a real way, they're trying to be nice. They really are. And I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
In Nashville, in this business, because it is such a small town, do you ever find it's hard to kind of make it about business when everybody knows everybody sometimes?
For me, no. Somebody once said, well, I think you're just too close to everybody and you're you're friends with too many of these people that are in positions of A&R or running labels or whatever. And, I look at that as, if you want somebody who's very combative from a legal standpoint to come in and say hateful things and be really aggressive and push a lot of buttons and create a lot of chaos, I'm not your guy.
Yeah.
But from my role, the way I look at it, if I'm ever going to compromise a client's best interest because I have a relationship with somebody on the other side of the table, at that point I'm a fraud and I need to quit. I need to stop being. As a lawyer, it's different as a lawyer, because a lawyer, you are sworn by oath to represent.
There's that small part.
To represent the interest of your client over everything. Mm-hmm. And I've lost friends in the music business who didn't understand that, but I've never compromised the interest of a client because I have a friend in the business. So now, does it happen with other relationships that don't? And there could be some lawyers who compromise it. I don't know of any. I hope they don't. But in other worlds where you're not sworn to an oath to zealously represent your client, could you be compromised as an artist because two people are really good friends? Maybe. But typically, people want to be in business with their friends. And it's like, hey, I've got this artist I'm really passionate about. Oh, me too. Let's do this together.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that's good for the artist, because if your team gets along and works well together, it should work to your benefit. Now, if they are compromising your interest in the middle of it, that's where there's a problem. And hopefully that's where the checks and balances of the artist team come in to help. And by that, I mean, there's kind of three main branches to the business side of an artist, and that's the manager, business manager, and lawyer. You should, as an artist, have a relationship with all three. So if there's a question between what's going on with your business manager and manager, are they too tight? They should be able to come to me and say, hey, what do you think about this? And 99% of the time, I say, that's absolutely normal. That's not anything to worry about. And let me explain to you why. But there's sometimes, I can't think of a recent example or really any example, where you have to be like, that is kind of interesting. Let me address this on your behalf.
Yeah.
Or it could be between the manager and the business manager. Hey, I think Scott's legal fees are too high. And you ought to be able to go to them and say, hey, I don't feel right about this bill Scott sent. And one or both of them ought to address it with me if there's a problem with it. So,
Scott, are your legal fees too high?
They're not high enough. I think I'm worth like twice
I've been
as much.
asking you a lot of advice right now. Am I going to get charged?
We'll talk about it. No, you're not getting charged, of course. But it is an interesting notion to look at an hourly rate and think, golly, what do I do that's really worth that? But it's the market, and you have to, I spend a lot of time encouraging my clients, especially the ones that are executives or on the employment side of things, like, hey, we got to realize your value. Don't compromise your value. Be confident in what you bring to the table. And then when it comes to my own business, I'm like, am I really worth that? All right, I'll do it for free. No, but it's interesting. I think most people feel that way. It's easy. It's harder to stand behind your own value than to encourage someone else to do the same.
For sure. So we're coming to the end, but I want to do a little bit of a rapid fire with you, which I think would be fun. I came up with a few things. So first one, indie or major?
Depends on your goals. I can't say it's not one size fits all.
Seems like a cop-out, Scott.
It's really the truth.
I'm kidding.
Listen, it's absolutely the truth. If you want to try to, if you're the big time and you want to be nominated for every CMA award or every Grammy award, I mean, there's internal politics, and the majors are the best at managing all of that. If you want to control your own rights and you want to do things your way and hold on to a little more creative control, maybe the indie way is better. So it really does depend. It depends on what your goals are.
Most annoying contract buzzword.
Annoying contract buzzword. I don't have a good answer for that. 360.
Okay.
It's not a buzzword. It's a provision, but still.
And I think that
I'm ready for that to go away.
I think that this might be the next one. Then you might say the same thing, but if you have a different answer, that'd be great. If you could delete one clause from the music contracts forever, what would it be? 360.
From record deals, probably. From other deals, I'm going to walk out of here and be like, you had 5 things you could have brought up and you kept saying 360. No, I would like to get rid of that forever. I think it's best for the artist. And like I said, it's not without its rationale, but yeah, I'll go with that.
Okay. Dream client, the next viral sensation, or a legendary artist?
I'm going to take a little liberty with that, and the next legendary artist.
Okay.
I believe, there are people who have moments on TikTok, and it's not their fault. It's great. I mean, they have a moment, and now they have to try to live up to that moment. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, just because something great happened on TikTok or Reels doesn't mean you're going to be a legendary artist. In fact, most of the time, it doesn't mean that. And most of the time, for everybody, I mean, you're legendary for a reason, right?
Sure.
But I had a client not too long ago tell me they were on the verge of something good happening, and I was like, hey, I think this is happening. And she said, Scott, it has to happen. I don't have a plan B. This is all I've got. It has to happen. I need you to understand that. And I was like, Lord, okay, that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
But that's the type of artist that I'm like most passionate about. It's like, man, it's a lot of pressure, but if you feel that way, you've got what's inside to be legendary. Mm-hmm. If you're like, man, I like this moment, but I'm not sure I want to work, more than one weekend a month. You're not going to be legendary more than likely.
No.
Now, with the people who want to be legendary, we got to work on balance of, work-life balance and expectations and mental health and all of those things that come with not having a plan B and having to do it because you can't imagine life without it. There's other things that come with that. But if you want to be involved with greatness, they start out that way.
Totally. Okay, last rapid fire. Biggest legal myth artists still believe?
Labels are out to get them. That's not true. They have a job to do, and their job is to sign up artists and masters that are successful. And labels are made up from the people that I know and the labels I've been involved in. I worked for a label for a while. That was my first gig in the industry, and it was a collection of people who bled for artists. That's what they wanted. They wanted the artist to succeed. They wanted to be a part of it. That's all they've wanted for their whole life, is to be involved and be able to help and be in and around artists. And labels, the system they get labeled as this evil empire that's out to get artists.
Totally.
And it's not true. And sometimes you can sign up. There's there's several bad labels that I would say, hey, let's just avoid them altogether.
What are they, Scott?
I don't think we'll talk about it off camera. I just don't think they really have the best interest of the artist at heart.
Yeah.
But there's very few of those.
Yeah.
Now, you can sign up to one that doesn't do what you expected them to do. Or you can sign up because there's a person there that you love and you find out a month later that they got fired.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that can go wrong. But labels are made up of people who desperately want to be part of a team that helps artists succeed. And the system sometimes is really bad for artists, but the people there are generally great people who want to help artists.
For sure. One last question, and thank you so much for being on this show. I really think that because we're talking about individual people's careers in the music business, what is a piece of advice you would give to someone who wants to be in entertainment law? They want to do what you do. Where would you say they start?
I would tell them to start by being really good at being a lawyer, by being really diligent about how you go about things. And then it's about relationships, getting the word out that you want to be an entertainment lawyer and that you're willing to pay whatever price. That sounded a little harsh. You're willing to pay the price to do it. What I struggle with is I find young lawyers that all they've ever wanted to do is be an entertainment lawyer, and they would do anything to do it. And then you get a contract they drafted, and there's 5 flashing typos on the first page, and you're like, so when you said you do anything, did you mean like anything but read this twice before you handed it to me? That's what I don't say it, but that's what I want to say. Like, really? Like, what did you really mean? And so to me, what can be forgotten in your quest to be an entertainment lawyer, they see, oh man, I'm going to be at the table with the major label negotiating my artist, deal. But what it is a grind to make sure every word and every document is accurate. And the expectation is that we're 100% correct. Now, we're humans, so we're not going to be 100% correct and accurate. But that's the goal, and that's the expectation. And that's a grind. And it's an expectation not for the first year, for your whole career, is that every word and every document says what it's supposed to say, and that you've done your best to make it say what's in favor of your client. That is a very challenging daily grind. It's my price of entry to be able to hang out and be in the presence of songwriters and country music artists. I was willing to pay that price and dialed up hopefully accurate documents for 7 years for Kathy Woods, who first gave me a chance in the music business at RCA Label Group in the year 2000. I did that for 7 years before I was able to start my own practice and start doing it for other people. And because I did that, I don't have a lot of sympathy for people who won't pay that price. Because I know I'm naturally inclined to give advice, to be at shows, to recruit new clients, and the grind of like, all right, every word says this, what it's supposed to say. I got to work for that.
Sure.
I might have to read it 3 times where other people who are more inclined to see those errors read it once, or maybe they read it twice. I might have to read it 5 times, but it doesn't matter. You read it until you know it's right. And so having paid that price, I expect that out of people who want to do what I do. Totally. And at the end of and that sounds old school or whatever, but it also is a reflection of whether you're meant to do it for the rest of your life. If paying that price is too much, you're like, I don't know, this really isn't worth it. You're probably in the wrong job. You probably, you should, in an ideal world, you show up and you're kind of good at what you're supposed to be doing. You begin with the skills to do it, and you're passionate about getting better. And if you're not, it's not really your fault. It doesn't mean you're a bad person or a lazy person necessarily. It just means you're not quite in the right spot that you're supposed to be.
The DMV is always hiring. That's the...
They are, and there's plenty of people who that's the right spot for. I'm thinking this one nice lady. I'm like, how are you this happy working here? But there are people who are meant to do that, and there are people who work there that are happy.
We need old Disney employees to go work at the DMV. I think.
Yeah,
hey, that's where they need to go.
Yes, just be happy.
Thank you, Scott, so much for being on What's Mine Is Yours. This was actually really interesting and really entertaining because there were so many things that I've been curious about. So thank you very much.
Well, thanks. My first podcast experience. So thanks for bringing me in.
Thanks. Hey guys, it's Tiffany Boys. Thank you so much for watching another episode of What's Mine Is Yours. Make sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to check out more, come visit our socials and follow us at WMIY.podcast.